job to deal with the cleanup was the
mobilization of equipment and resources. We had the will and the readiness of response. We didn't all have the necessary equipment, resources, and manpower that it was going to take.
Another project in the cleanup was protecting the wastewater treatment plant. That project and the cleanup cost about $4 million.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Incredible pictures. Also, some of the officials. Unbelievable the change.
Unbelievable the changes what they were then. And
Okay.
now.
Well, thank you, Matt. Well, dealing with health issues and cleanup issues was a very, very difficult task.
It was, but another job that was probably just as difficult was delivering the news to the public.
That's for sure. And as we mentioned earlier, there wasn't much that anyone knew.
The main source of information was KIT's Al Bell. When word was out that the mountain blew, KIT radio suspended all normal programming and began full coverage of the event.
A situation that no one has ever dealt with before. It was very strange. It was very exciting, but we were flying by the seat of our pants. None of us had any previous experience to go on. The station, I think the reason if we did become the main.
Well, programming was off for several days. KIT served as a clearinghouse for the stranded and for people just to get some information.
That's right. Now, you know, it was a few years ago when the volcano blew, and you and I weren't here,
right.
And some people weren't old enough to remember, but many Yakima residents can still remember that historic day.
First at 5's Wisdom Martin talked with some residents about what they remember, and he has this report.
Imagine yourself outside in the last set of your tennis match, or outside playing, or on your way to a birthday party. We spoke with some Yakima residents that took us back to that day.
When it actually happened? It was funny because it was a Sunday and, you know, of course, a day off, and I was playing in a tennis tournament at YVC, and I was in church, and we had heard this, it sounded like a sonic boom.
I was hanging upside down on my monkey bars, and I was facing actually the direction of Mount St. Helens, and all of a sudden I just saw this black cloud go up.
In fact, we were kind of watching the cloud as it was coming, and we assumed that it was a big rain cloud, and everybody was saying, well, let's hurry up and get these matches done.
I remember we stayed home and played Hungry Hungry Hippo.
The wives of one of the men I was playing with drove up, stopped her car right in the middle of the street, and literally jumped out and said, get in the car, we're out of here. The volcano just blew off and everybody scattered. I had a friend that was a pilot that offered to take us up and fly us around the volcano and through, and it looked just like somebody just took all those trees and just threw them across the ground. And I used to work up near St. Helens. We did some road building and road paving up there, and before I was doing the news, and the road that we built was completely obliterated. You couldn't even tell it was ever there. In fact, there was no signs of man up there whatsoever. It just, Mother Nature, you could tell it took charge.
Now, while they were not able to recall every single detail of that day, one thing is for certain, it's something they say they will never, ever forget.
It's something that a lot of people won't forget, not only because the pictures were so unbelievable, because of the emotional effect as well, and the economical effects. And the Yakima Valley is so rich in agriculture, we want to know, are the fruit trees affected by all of that ash?
As First at 5's Kelly Shinoda reports, one farmer says his pear trees are still standing and producing fruit.
Today, you wouldn't know that this orchard was covered with ash 15 years ago. Sela's Dave Cody didn't know if his equipment would be able to get it off.
I spent most of the day yesterday with a speed sprayer just going through and blowing the trees off.
And was that effective? It was something that no one had ever dealt with before. We had a quarter of an inch of this dust that was on the trees, and about the only thing that everybody could agree on was that it had to come off.
Cody says they were worried about Mount St. Helens ash getting into the calyx of the pear, which is the bottom of the pear, and that once it fell, the fruit would go around it.
As it turned out, I don't think that there was any fruit that was unpackable because of it.
Cody's no longer active on his farm. He now works in the insurance business, but says he'll never forget the day Mount St. Helens blew.
Probably, hopefully, a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. I remember it created a lot of extra work.
The only remains of the ash is in the soil. Luckily, it's not hurting the fruit trees from producing healthy pears. In Sela, Kelly Shinoda, KNDO News 23.
Fruit tree researcher Mike Willett says the ash did more damage to the equipment than actually to the trees. He adds the valley actually had a very good cherry crop back in 1980.
A lot of damage can be done. The destructive force of Mount St. Helens blew away over 200 square miles of wildlife.
For this Week's All Outdoors, First at 5's Drew Mickelson takes us back to the state 15 years later.
It is a really incredible sight. I was out at the Coldwater Interpretive Center, and like I said, it's just amazing out there. All the experts and all the visitors out there all say that the view and the recovery is just simply amazing.
Even when rain clouds cover the sleeping giants, there's still plenty to see out here.
And every year there's more and more growth. We see more green out there, more shrubs like the huckleberry. You see more of the cottonwoods that you're seeing dotting many of these hillsides as they get leaves on them right now.
The site's not only recovering. Some new parts created by the eruption had to start their lives all over.
Coldwater Lake is a lake that's only 15 years old, as is Castle Lake that we can probably see across the valley from us. Both lakes are only 15 years old, and within 5 years, those lakes were supporting life, much like before the eruption.
Whether it's your first time out here or your 10th, people always say that the volcano, this site, and the recovery are all amazing.
I'm impressed with the way it's come back in a relatively short period of time.
It's beautiful, just unbelievable.
It was so bleak the first time we came up, and now you start seeing green, and the birds are flying around, and people are down there fishing on the lake. It's really marvelous.
Visitors and experts agree that what's happening out here not only shows the power of nature, but also the will of the earth to survive.
Now, the Coldwater area is pretty new. It only opened in 1993, and since then, over 1 million visitors, and actually 1.5 million visitors, have been out there to see all the recovery. And it was that beautiful when it's cloudy. You guys can do some magic.
No dinner, no birthday cake, no nothing. Not only that, you're sort of confined at that point.
I had just cleaned my above-ground swimming pool and